Hey guys, my name is Al, and welcome to our third sprint review. Today I'll be talking about the different user stories that we were able to accomplish during our third sprint. We'll also be talking about our progress in terms of whether or not we met our acceptance criteria, and I'll also be talking about whether we achieved our sprint goal for our third sprint. So let's get started for our third sprint review. So one of our user stories was that the user should be able to manage the requests they receive, and part of our sprint backlog for our third sprint was to utilize the process automation for the approval requests. Thankfully, Barney, during one of our courses, did a pretty good job of explaining that. So it did save a lot of stress for us. And that was part of our sprint. Our third sprint backlog was to basically implement that. And basically, it did take away some of the discrepancies that we had for our previous sprint. In our previous sprint, we weren't able to accept and approve or deny the requests that the administrative users wanted to submit or wanted to have approved. But for this sprint, we were able to achieve that. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that right now. As you can see, I'm logged in as the administrative user. Hank Schrader is our administrative user, and he wants to be able to make change to whatever he wants to. Let me just make sure that is his profile. Yeah, Hank Schrader. Okay, so if I want to make a request, I click on this, and as you can see, we're still playing around with UI. We want to have a better setup, but our goal for the sprint was just to have that process automation set up. So I'm going to create a request, and for the sake, I'll just do test 2 for sprint 3. And I'm going to select a date. I know we have to, for this, we have to manually select a date, but for our last and final sprint, our fourth sprint, we're going to create a script so that it'll automatically populate the current date and time, so it can save us some time. And for request comment, I'll just go ahead and put test for sprint 3. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. As you can see, we could see the layout or what we have for that ticket. You have the request name, date, time, request comment, request ID. That's automatically set up. You can see who created it, who modified it last, and who's the owner. So Hank Schrader is the owner, the administrative user who wants to test this out. And as you can see in the bottom from the process automation, we can see the approval history. So basically, that'll give Hank Schrader the idea of where his ticket is, where it is at. So if he wants to see what the status of his ticket is, he could go ahead and navigate to approval history. But to go ahead and submit this, I'm going to click this arrow and hit submit for approval. Last minute comments, please accept this. I'll be your best friend forever. So I'm going to click submit, and this signifies our this is our approval. This confirms that the request has been sent. So I don't know if you just heard, but there was an email notification that was just sent out. I'm going to go ahead and pause this and show you the email notification that the data steward has received. So once the administrative user submits the request, the data steward is given email notification of the ticket that was sent to him or her. So I'm going to go ahead and pause and pull up that now. Yeah, so as you can see right here, for simplicity's purposes, the data steward is linked to my email. Here is the notification that the administrative user has submitted to the data steward for approval. So Hank Schrader is the administrative user that sends in the request to the data steward, and the data steward receives this email. So not only do they receive an email, but they also receive a notification on their end of the Salesforce system. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that to you right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to log in to I'm going to log into the data steward's account, and we'll see her view of what she gets when there's a request submitted. Skylar White. I'm going to enter the password. So I'm logging in as the data steward. We still have this UI discrepancy here. We'll figure that out, but I'll log into the app, clicking that. And as you can see right here, this notification icon signifies that we have a request. So it says user blah 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 is requesting approval for request. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. As you can see, we have a list of all the requests that he has, or that the data steward has, and it also has the details of the current sprint. I know what's missing from the approval details is the ability to either modify or view. So we do plan on incorporating that for our fourth sprint. And as you can see the current the current request name for what was sent to the data steward. So it says test 2 for sprint 3 review. I know that it's a little inconvenient to have this organized like this, like the data steward is going to have to navigate through all this and figure out which one he wants to approve. But right here we have test 2 for sprint 3 review, and right here is where they would approve that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that that ticket. Oh no, I'm sorry, that was the wrong one. It is test 2 for sprint 3 review. There it is. So as you can see, this is the data steward's view of what they get on their end. As you can see, they can say the request name, request comment, the ID, the owner of that. For some reason, I don't know why it's not showing. The actual name, but he or she is able to make a message. I think that's a good use case to have. And right here is an important concept. Here we have the approval history. So the data steward can see what the administrative user could see on his end on the status of that ticket. So as you can see right now, it's pending because they just opened that. And to approve that, you can either hit approve or reject. We want to be able to figure out how to put on one more button called on hold. That's also one of the functionalities that's needed for this system, but we'll figure that out for the next sprint as well. But essentially, I'm just going to go ahead and approve that, and the data steward sends back a comment. Congrats. So there, officially the request was approved. Now, when I go back to the administrative user end, Hank Schrader's, and he's able to see, let's see. Yeah, so he's able to see his end on the status of the ticket. So as you can see on this end right here, it says pending right now, but once I refresh that, he'll see that it was accepted. So right here you can see that Skylar White has approved his ticket on 12:07 p.m. I don't know what time zone that is in. I'm currently in Central, but yeah, as you can see, the administrative user could track using the approval history on that page, and that essentially was one of our items in our sprint, in our third sprint backlog. I know that on our previous sprint, we had to get that functionality, so we were able to achieve that and have that functionality where the data steward is able to actually approve the ticket. And part of the acceptance criteria was that they were able to modify that ticket, and as you can see, they're able to modify that using these buttons. And you can also see, as part of their acceptance criteria, is that they can see the history and the status of their ticket. So that satisfies that user story. We do have a little bit of UI to work on for our fourth sprint, but I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to achieve that. So let's move on to our next item in our sprint backlog. So the next item on our sprint backlog was for the data steward is able to generate an audit report. So to do that, I'm going to go to the data steward's end, and I believe this is the data steward. Let me just double check. Skylar White. All right, so to generate this status report, I actually put that under this tab. I know it's a little bit of a UI thing, but just for time's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and click that. And one issue that we ran into was that was this error right here. It says that we can't draw this chart because there's no data. But I got in touch with Mr. Barney Young from our Salesforce seminar that we had, and luckily he gave me a strategy to address this issue. So for our fourth sprint, we'll be able to address that. But we're still able to access that audit report. It's just a little bit of a workaround that we have to work with. But to access that, we click on it, click View Report, and click on Administrative Reports and hit Approval Process Instance Test. And this gives us our Approval Process Instance Test. So it basically gives every request, every name of requester, the requester affiliation. It gives the outcome of the data, so whether if it was approved or denied. I'm pretty sure it gives sorry, I don't know why I can't. It gives the contact information, I believe, too, but yeah, as you can see, it says approve, reject, who approved it. Let's see if we could find that that record that I have. I don't know. Let's see. So yeah, so right here, this was the example that we worked with for a sprint. It says test 2 for sprint review submitted by Hank Schrader. It gave us the time, the elapsed hours, and the elapsed minutes, and it was approved by Skylar White, approved right here. So that's essentially what we have for the audit report. I think the only issue that we have is the accessibility part. But you know, I talked to Mr. Barney Young about that, and we'll be able to push forward with a solution for our final sprint. And that essentially satisfies that use case on our sprint product backlog. We're even able to filter what's on that using this function right here. So satisfies every single acceptance criteria for general audit report. And our last use case in our sprint backlog was to generate a dashboard. So it essentially, the dashboard is supposed to have response time and you know, the elapsed time of how long it took to approve it. So as you can see, we don't have a navigation button for that, but we were running into the same issue where the dashboard isn't showing the data. So we did get in touch with Mr. Barney, and he gave us a little bit of a solution to that. But for time's sake, I'll just show you what we have again. It's under the same report. So all we have to do is just create a separate dashboard for that. But I'll show you on that report that it's there. That's the wrong one. My apologies. Let me show you that real quick. So click on Administrative Rewards, Proof Process Test. So total 8 records, and we'll use these statistics right here. So elapsed days, elapsed hours, elapsed minutes. Those are some of the few statistics that we'll use for that generate dashboard. All we have to do is just put that in a different tab and find a better way to actually display that and work around that little UI issue that we had that I just mentioned earlier. But essentially, the data is there, the report's there. But when I was creating the dashboard, I was running through the same issue, and I just didn't want to run it through again. But hopefully for our next sprint, that's one thing that we will address. And overall, the only thing that we have to do is just for this use case is just to make a separate tab and a separate dashboard for that. But we do have the statistics right here. We just have to put in that report in that dashboard, and that those acceptance criteria would be there. So to assess the third sprint overall, I would say that I did meet most of the acceptance criteria for in preparation for our fourth sprint. Thankfully, I did get some guidance from Mr. Barney Young to use that guidance that we got from him for our fourth and final sprint. So essentially for our fourth sprint, we do plan on just focusing on UI components, and that's what we do have set up. And I think that I put us on a pretty good track to be on time for our project schedule and our fourth sprint. Essentially, the only problem that we ran into was generating that dashboard, but even for that, we do have all our data for that. We have the columns set up, and all we have to do is just make sure we mitigate around that one error that we had, and we do have the solution for that. So we do plan on using and pushing forward for our fourth sprint, and all we have to do is just create a new tab for that. But essentially, all other use cases have been met, and all acceptance criteria have been met, and for that, I would say that I did put us in a good position for our fourth sprint. So I'm looking forward to our last and final sprint review. Thank you.